Hi, innately whole beings. It's a beautiful weather today, and I thought that I give you some value. Prepare because this live will be long. This is a workshop. Let's see, it's 2 o'clock. So I'm hoping that we be able to do this for an hour, or I be able to do this, and you are free to connect and just watch. This will be about breathing. This will be a breathing workshop with live Q&A. So if you have any questions, I'll be watching and answering them at the end. I became fascinated by breathing a few months ago. It just came to me intuitively that breathing is really important. So whenever things come to me like that, I don't know why, and I don't want to know why. I don't analyze it. It's just I trust in it, and I know that this will be important. Usually these intuitive thoughts, or I would say that voices, suggestions, come in a way that you barely notice it. And I was barely noticing it, just these thoughts, breathing is important, came more and more. And then I went to the seminar held by Brian D. Ridgway, who is doing an amazing work. He's doing something called spell break, where he basically shows people that we choose our reality and we can choose anything else. His work is amazing, and breath was an important part. Hi Lois, so good to have you here. This live is about breathing workshop. It will be long, but I will keep it valuable, and there will be a Q&A as well. So if you will have any questions, feel free to ask. So I went to this seminar held by Brian D. Ridgway, and he was doing spell breaks. And the very first thing he asked us to do is to breathe in a connected way, which means that there is no end after the inhale and after the exhale, but you breathing in a connected way, how the ocean washes the shore, and you breathe just a little bit more than usual, and you breathe just a little bit longer. Hi Lois, nice to have you here. Yeah, nice and sunny, is amazing here in Glasgow. And this kind of breathing helped us to open up to this deep work. So while he was doing spell break on one person, in a way, everyone was able to participate and go through the healing and cleansing process, because this kind of breathing allows the emotions, which are energy in motion, to rise up, so we can work with it and integrate it. So that was the time when I became more and more conscious how breathing is affecting our mind, affecting our emotions, and gets us connected who we are. And then I've done an interview with Lisa Halm, who is a breathwork practitioner, conscious life coach, and yoga teacher, and certified therapist. And we were briefly talking, we were mainly talking about emotional freedom, but again, breathwork, emotional freedom connects tightly together. And I also had the intuition that breath and our spirit is tightly connected. So you see, very early on when I started my coaching journey, I had the intuition that there is this system, which is not new, but I opened up to that, is that there is this three uh, three-part model of us, the three-part model of life, which is mind, spirit, and body. So the mind, the creator, the spirit, the underlying law of ourself, and the body, the physical part. And I felt that the spirit is connected to breath. And I will tell you why breath is important and why breath is connected to the spirit. It's basically the same. So if you think about it, the air, the breath, the air is something that surrounds us and we can't see it. It's like the ocean to the fish, right? And spirit is the same. And when I'm talking about the word behind the thoughts, and I'm talking about happiness and peace and love behind the thoughts, I'm really talking about the space of the spirit. So that's the matter which surrounds us everywhere, and we live in, and we can't see it. And because of that, we often think or believe that it doesn't exist. We think that that we are all one doesn't exist. We believe that true happiness and love doesn't exist because we caught up in our mind and we experience reality as we are separate. That's one of the greatest illusion of life. So if you think about it, air is just like that. And that's why I'm having a hard time often to explain to people that what is the non-dual reality, what is the innately whole reality of everything. Because it's like explaining water to a fish, explaining air. I mean, it's for us, we get a concept of the air, but explaining the water to the fish, it lives into in the water. That's the only thing what the fish experience. Hi, Joseph. It's the only thing what the fish experiences. Therefore, it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain because it surrounds us. So air is like that. Air is the spirit. Another way of explaining it is that, or why are they connected? In a lot of language, breath and spirit, tightly connected, are basically the same. In a lot of language, actually, breath means spirit. I think it comes from, in English language, it's coming from the Latin spiritus, which is literally means the spiritus literally means breath, the breath of God, the breath of creation. In the Bible, the part of the Genesis, in the Bible it's written that God breathed into the nostrils of the man, us, the life, and man became a living being. And some cultures actually believe that we are not born, or we are not a living being since we take our first breath. When we in a fetus state, when we are in a fetus state, we're not breathing. We got the nutrients, the oxygen from the mother, our lungs not working yet. And when we born with our first breath, it's basically first trauma in our life. With our first breath, we take in the breath of God. So, back to the language, in the Hawaiian language, it's again aloha, means breath, and also the Spirit of God. And in Hebrew, I won't be able to say all of those, but in Hebrew as well, it is the breath of God. And there is, if you do your research, I've done mine, you see that it's so connected in Chinese language again. Qi, for example, again, prana. Although prana describes more, it's the whole energy, the life energy surrounds us. So you can really see how people knew this, how ancient, wise sages and people, it was a very common knowledge that breathing is tightly connected to spirit, tightly connected to God, tightly connected to who we are. So it started to make sense for me that breath goes to the very core of who we are. And then I started to research different breathing methodologies. Yeah. I started to look into the Wim Hof method. You may heard about it. Hit like or comment if you did. I was learning about the Buteyko breathing technique, which is really interesting as well, made by a Russian doctor who and was found was what's that supported by the Russian space program, and I was researching pranayama and different breathing methods like holotropic breathing and rebirthing. There are still things to learn, a lot of things. It's a deep topic and very interesting. And I was searching for some key principles, and what I want to talk about today is some of these key principles, what I found in all of these methodologies. And I'm trying to talk fast because there are just so many things, so many information to put out, and I want to create a YouTube series about this. But now, as a practice, I want to tell to you and connect and teach it to you what I've learned. So as the body, mind, and spirit are one system, the breathing affects our body and mind and spirit. When we breathe, we really breathe with our mind, with our body, and with our spirit. Why often we feel anxious, and I experience this because I'm working in my full-time job as a computer artist. I'm often sitting 12 hours in front of the computer. What's not ideal. I want to move away from that. But I often experience that strange, I'm getting into the not very good mind space during the day. And at the very first time, or just after I stand up and start to walk around, and when I open up and breathe, my thoughts change right away. And it pretty much comes from our body posture, the closed, stagnant, hunched way of sitting. That's quite obvious, right? But this also affects our breathing, so mind, spirit, body connected together like that. Let's see, breathing, what else? So if I'm talking about how, come on, I hope that my phone can keep up. So if I'm talking about breathing, then how does it affect our mind? So we heard about deep breathing when we actually use our diaphragm. This is also called diaphragmic breathing, right? So why is it important? It is important because we can say that we have three main parts of our lungs: the clavicular part, the costal part, and the diaphragmic part. So when we breathe through our diaphragm, it means that we using this muscle. It's a parachute-shaped muscle separating the costal, the chest area from the abdominal area. It's one of the biggest muscle, and diaphragmic breathing means, or stomach breathing means, you don't breathe into your stomach actually, but you're using this muscle to use a deeper capacity of your lung. You breathing into the lower part of your lung, and because of that, your stomach extrudes. And while the upper part is more the, how would I say, it's more the anabolic, so it's more the stress, the fight or flight, more the active, the doing part of the body. So it's not good or bad necessarily, just we need to use it in the right circumstances, the right situation, the right time. But because restricted shallow breathing, people often breathe only into this top middle area. And why they say always that diaphragmatic breathing is good, because if you open up and you breathe into your stomach, you use your diaphragm, it means that you use the lower parts of your lung, which has much more veins than the upper part, so it can take up much more oxygen. That's one part. And the lower part is the opposite of the upper part. While the upper part is more the the fight or flight, the stress part of the body. The lower part is the relaxed, the resting, the anabolic part of the system. So if you have deep breathing, then it means that you release, you let go of the stress, you become more anabolic, you become more calm and relaxed just by breathing deeper. So that's why they mentioning that all the time. And there is the costal, what's kind of in between. So there are no good or bad ways of breathing. We actually naturally use different breathing patterns throughout our life, or we would naturally use them. And if you want to learn about breathing, one of the simplest methods to learn about it is to observe how you breathe in different life situations, how you breathe during running, how you breathe after you finish the vigorous run, so after you exhausted. How do you breathe when you're in a deep meditation, or when you in deep relaxation, a good afternoon nap, or before after sleep? You can learn a lot just by observing your breath. Another important factor what defines our state, and if we are in a more stress or relaxed state, is do we breathe through our nose or mouth? So again, this kind of duality of calming effect and more stress effect comes back in different part of our breathing. So one is the place where we breathe. The other one is the path we breathe. So the path can be two paths, mainly because one is the nose, one is the mouth. We could talk about pores, breathing through our skin, but it's not relevant right now. So while mouth breathing, when do we breathe through our mouth naturally? We breathe through our mouth usually when we after we exhausted after a vigorous exercise. So weightlifting, running, sex, things like this, then we breathe through our mouth. It's simply a bigger hole than the nose, and it allows us to take up much more oxygen. But that's more the kind of connected to the stress activities, right? When do we, when we breathe through our nose, that's more controlled. The nose is our primary breathing organ, so we should, I would say, 90% of the time, or whenever we can, breathe us. The wind just came. The wind. So when we should mainly breathe through our nose. In the Buteyko system, they actually say that you should breathe through your mouth as much as you eat through your nose. So obviously this is a joke, but you get the point. Mouth breathing actually can be really harmful, and I can talk about just that for half an hour. Just in short, mouth breathing, we often, when people grow up, kids, due to stress and due to bad body posture, the backpack, they carry their books and they go into school, they start to sit 6-8 hours in school, all of these, and changes in the psychology a lot of times causes to pick up the habit of mouth breathing, which is not natural. As we born as an infant, if you able to look at an infant how he or she breathes, a baby breathes into the stomach through the nose, but we maybe pick up mouth breathing in early time, and that can have some serious bad effects on the child. The brain doesn't develop as much. Actually, it causes bad transformation in the oral structure, in the nose structure, so it affects the beauty. The jaw drops back, the nose gets crooked, things like this. So it's really interesting and serious to look into this, what mouth breathing can cause. The other effect, what may be more relevant to us, is that mouth breathing brings with it a serious stuff, what's called hyperventilation, and more the hidden hyperventilation, which means that that we think that we breathe normally, but because one, we use our mouth to breathe, two is that through our mouth we can take too much air, we hiddenly hyperventilate, and actually breathing more makes us less oxygenated. Did you know that? So actually when you, and often yoga practitioners do this, they do the yoga posture, deep breathing, and we were told to breathe deep, and we not just breathe deep, but actually we believe that deep breathing means that we have to deep big, but breathing big is not deep breathing. Deep breathing using the diaphragm, using the full lung capacity. Big breathing is just taking a lot of air. So what happens when you take a lot of air? When you take a lot of air, actually you get less oxygen. Why? How can it be? You breathing more oxygen and you get less oxygenated. So this is okay, my phone is dying, so if you have any questions, just type it now. I will keep going as far as I can, and then I will continue maybe in a second part. So when we breathe deep, we take too much air, too much oxygen. What happens? That there is actually oxygen and CO2, carbon dioxide balance in our system. And this balance is really important. So we always talk about oxygen, but never really talk about carbon dioxide, never really talk about CO2, the importance of that. And if you take too much oxygen, your system, your blood becomes saturated by oxygen. And oxygen ties to the hemoglobin in the blood. And if there is too much oxygen, it starts to tie too strong to the hemoglobin, and it doesn't get released. So you may have a lot of oxygen in your system, but your system cannot use it. And this Bohr effect, it's, I think, another Russian doctor. This Bohr effect means that you need CO2, carbon dioxide, in your system to get the oxygen released from the hemoglobin. This is the body's way of keeping the oxygen level steady. So if you breathe in too much oxygen, you won't be able to release it. So you're supposed to have a more balanced levels, oxygen and CO2, but that goes only so far. So that's why different methodologies like Hatha Yoga, Pranayama, Buteyko breathing, and maybe there are some others as well, or there are others as well, focusing on basically lowering the amount of air you breathe through either breathing less air or, like the yoga systems, breathing more slowly. So in some cultures, they say, in some, for example, yogic traditions, they say that people have a certain amount of air or a certain amount of breath they can take during their life, and if they took that amount of air, they naturally pass to another life. So the meaning behind that is this, is that your or our health or people's health tightly connected to the amount of air we take. Also, if you think about it, like longevity and the amount of, or the breath per minute is connected. So for example, animals who take mice, for example, take fast-paced breath, and they live shorter. Than there are the dogs. They breathe slower, they live longer, and there is the human. I think the horse breathes slower, like the whale breathes the slowest and lives the longest. So this is just an interesting fact as well. So health is not just about breathing more oxygen, but it's about using your lung more efficiently, which means using more parts, training the breathing muscles, and in pranayama and other methodologies, one of the beginner, the earlier part is about breathing, building up these muscle strengths. But the second part is to actually slowing down the breath per minute, slowing down the amount of slowing down the breath, so in that way you got control over how much you breathe. In the Buteyko system, they're not focusing as much to the breath per minute, but rather they focusing on the amount of air you breathe. But again, at the end, it comes down to how much air you breathe per minute. So, and Buteyko, by observing thousands of people, ill people, um, regular people, practitioners, athletes, he found that he actually by thousands and thousands, ten of thousands of data, he created a table of how much breath per minute you take and how is your health. For example, just an interesting fact is that people who go down, for example, 5 breath per minute, they sleep less. They naturally need less sleep. For example, 6 hours, 5-6 hours, and it was written in Hatha Yoga books and in other tradition that breath masters, so big masters who were breathing 3 breaths per minute, they were sleeping 2 hours, and it's not just they didn't need more sleep, so you don't need, so this is the natural, it's simply that during sleep you take more energy in, your body can recover much more. And people who close to death, for example, their breathing speeds up, and Buteyko went so far that he was able to look at the chest, how the chest of the patient were rising. Because he was doing his practice, I think, in war zones as well. So there were a lot of patients there, and obviously he was a doctor. So when he observed the pace of the breath, and he could say how many days or hours the patient left. So he observed that as the health of the patient deteriorated, his or her breath become more fast. And he had asthma as well, and he first, when he discovered this, started to experiment with taking less air, and the asthma symptoms lowered, or then he tried to breathing faster again and they came back. So there are a lot of evidences why the breath per minute or the amount of air matters and highly correlated to our health. What about then the Wim Hof method? The Wim Hof method actually uses hyperventilation, but that's a controlled hyperventilation. At the beginning, you take 30 or more deep breath. You feel tingling, which we feel because our system doesn't get oxygenated, but that oxygen is stored in our system. But after that, in the Wim Hof method, when you fully oxygenate your body, you breathe out and you stop. You stop breathing, and you measure how long you kept, how long you can keep your breath hold, and basically the aim of the Wim Hof method is different than the aim of this kind of Buteyko or breath slowing yoga practices. There are a lot of other practices in yoga similar to the Wim Hof, but this has another aim. While the Buteyko kind of way is more about the normal breathing, slowing that down and building a better health. the Wim Hof method works with the sympathetic nervous system, with the anabolic, with the stress nervous system. So basically what it does, it trains our system so our immune system works much better. That's why the Wim Hof, doing the Wim Hof method, not recommended at the afternoon, not recommended before sleep. It's more recommended after waking up, because that's the natural anabolic sympathetic part of our day. So if you do that in the morning, it lowers the depression. If you do it with a cold shower especially, it increases your immune system's function, and you will be, I think, much better to bear pain and cold, and it has tons of benefits because it stimulates your nervous system. Because the other thing is that we don't get this amount of stimuli. We get other kind of stress stimuli, but this is a controlled, good kind of